I've been producing bad code, and it's not because I forgot how to code. I've been using AI tools for over a year now, actually, since they popped up. And I've tried every workflow, terminal agents, IDE copilots, the whole vibe coding thing everyone talks about. I keep exploring it because that's what I like to do. I like to evaluate, I keep what works, and I move from what doesn't. But here's where I am right now. I'm always exploring, trying to make the agent do most of the work for me, but I still find it more reliable to do the work myself than trust the agent to do it. And I'm starting to wonder what that pressure to delegate everything to the agent is actually doing to my skills. Let me show you the research that made me feel less crazy about all this. When AI writes the code, it's faster sometimes, but then I review it, I find things, I correct things here and there, and suddenly I'm in that loop where I'm either spending more time than if I just did the work myself, or I'm spending the same time but doing a less nice version of the work. I'm auditing the work that I didn't write and I don't fully trust. And I'm starting to wonder what that's doing to my engineering skills. Not because AI replaced them, but because the pressure to delegate everything is pulling me away from the thinking. And the thinking is what actually built all my skills in the first place. Let's be honest though, the expectation to be dramatically more productive is really high. It's coming from management, it's coming from social media, it's coming from inside your own head. Every demo makes it look like everyone else has everything figured out and you're just falling behind. Yeah, AI can be a huge productivity boost, but only if you have the perfect project structure, the perfect context, perfect docs. That doesn't really exist. Not in any real code base I've ever worked on. You know what exists? Legacy code, tech debt, patterns that were temporary 3 years ago, the quick fix that became the architecture and nobody dares to touch it. Business logic that lives in someone's head and nowhere else. And if you point the AI agent to that thing, it doesn't fix any problems. It just copies them, it amplifies them. It confidently reproduces the worst patterns at scale. So you're not just dealing with tech debt now, you're dealing with AI generated tech debt that looks clean because the agent formatted it nicely. And here's what made me feel less crazy about all this. I'm going to walk you through the research because each study hits harder than the last. Here's the first one. METR, a nonprofit organization, took 16 experienced open source developers, people who maintain large code bases with over 1 million lines of code, and they had them work on real issues on their own code bases. They had to work on real bugs, real features, real refactors. Half the time they could use AI, half the time they couldn't. Before the study, these developers predicted that the AI would make them 24% faster. After using it, they felt like it was about 20% faster. But here's the part that should really unsettle you. In reality, they discovered that these developers took 19% longer to complete these tasks. They are 19% slower. They felt 20% faster. It's almost 40% point gap average between perception and reality. This is the speed mirage. You feel like you're flying. The data says you're actually walking backwards and you can't even feel it. So let's jump to the second study. Anthropic ran a trial on their own tool and found out that developers using AI scored 17% lower in comprehension tests compared to developers who coded manually. The AI group finished slightly faster, but the speed difference wasn't even statistically significant. It was just a little gain for real understanding loss. It gets worse. The developers who delegated code generation to AI scored below 40% on comprehension. The ones who used AI for conceptual questions such as asking why and how a certain feature work, they scored 65% above the average. So same tool, completely different outcomes depending on how they used it. So let's think about that for a moment. We're not faster, we understand less of what we're shipping, and we don't even trust what we ship. But we keep using it because everyone seems to have it all figured out. That's the speed mirage at work. So let me name the thing clearly. The industry is optimizing for throughput when we should be optimizing for confidence. Throughput is lines of code generated, PRs opened, features shipped. It's the metric that looks really nice in dashboards, but it falls apart in production. Confidence is different. Do I understand what this code really does? Do I trust that it handles the edge cases? Can I debug this in 2 a.m. when something breaks? Vibe coding gives you a huge dopamine spike, you feel very productive, and then you spend the rest of your day cleaning up after the machine. And look, I'm not anti-AI. I use it every day. It's incredible, and I think it only tends to get better. But when I use it as a coding replacement, it makes my output worse. And that's the gap the industry isn't willing to talk about. So where does this leave us? The developers getting the best results from AI aren't the ones who figured out the best prompt. They're the ones who actually figured out what to delegate and what to keep. I call this the confidence boundary. Not everything deserves the same level of delegation. Here's what I've learned about where the boundary actually is. We can delegate when the spec is crystal clear and the risk is low. You're writing boilerplate, you're scaffolding repetitive patterns. You can review the output faster than writing it yourself. The code base has good documentation and the agent can reference it. You have to do it yourself when you're designing the architecture or making a structural decision. You have edge cases and subtle details in the spec that are kind of fuzzy. You're touching critical paths, auth, payment, data integrity. The legacy code is messy, and the agent will amplify the mess. And last one, but very important, you'll see that you're going to spend more time creating the specs than writing the code yourself. And here's the thing nobody tells you. The messier the code base, the more you have to do it yourself instead of rely on the agent. The thing is, the agent doesn't really know what's temporary, what edge cases exist in there when you have like a very messy or complicated code base that is not properly documented. The agent doesn't really know what's the right pattern when you have 3 or 4 patterns. The real skill isn't prompting, it's learning what to delegate and what to keep. It's building that infrastructure that really makes the agent work well in your code base. The reasons to delegate more and more code depend on how much we can really trust the agent to do the right thing and how easily we can review and confirm the output. This can only be achieved if we have a good strategy and a good structure in place. If you want AI to be genuinely useful, you need 2 things. You need specs and memory. Spec-driven development is what made it work for me. A spec is just a clear description of what the code really needs to do before you write it. Instead of prompting the agent to build a feature, I write a spec first. I explain what it needs to do, what are the edge cases that it has to handle, what I explicitly don't want in that code, and then I hand that to the agent, and then I review the implementation. This keeps me in the thinking role and the agent in the execution role. If you're using Cloud Code, there's a plugin called Superpowers that makes it very easy to start with spec-driven development. It handles the spec for you, like all the workflow. It's a low setup, and it's a very quick entry point for you to start playing with spec mode. But eventually, the best move is to actually build the specs yourself based on your code base. It takes a little bit more time up front, but you get better results and you spend fewer tokens and the agent actually understands your patterns much better. The second thing I found very helpful is to keep documenting the code as you build. That really helps the agent to have more context and evolve with your code base more easily. I recommend documenting product decisions, architectural choices, trade-offs you made, even temporary decisions that might become permanent. Because if the agent can't see your reasoning, it can undo your decisions without knowing it. A formal pattern for this already exists. It's called ADRs, Architectural Decision Records. Think of it like a decision journal that you keep in your codebase. Imagine just a set of markdown files that you keep in your project docs. We choose X over Y because of Z. This is temporary because we solve a performance issue. We're using this pattern for auth because it handles X edge cases. With all this information, you can configure your agent to point to those docs and knows how to reference them. This sounds like extra work, and it is, but here's what gives you. The agent now has the context that it needs to make the right decisions. The decisions that really align with your architecture now. You spend much less time correcting the outputs. You build with more confidence and you can delegate more. And other people in your team will also know exactly why you took certain decisions. So the thing is, in here, we think architecture first, then we are able to have delegation, not the other way around. I recommend you start simple. Next time you use AI, write like a 3-sentence spec and see if the time you spend reviewing the output of the agent drops. That's it. If your engineering skills feel soft nowadays with AI, or if you feel like the AI is making you produce more code but you don't really trust what you build, that's not really paranoia. The research says it's real. The Speed Mirage is powerful. It feels like progress. The dashboards says it's progress. But if you can't really explain what you build, debug when it breaks, or trust it handles the edge cases properly, that's not progress. That's depth with a really nice commit message. I'm not quitting AI. I'm quitting the lie that AI makes everything magically faster. The developers who are going to thrive aren't the ones who are shipping more code. They are the ones who learn what to delegate and what to do themselves. The ones that really learn how to set up a proper strategy to be more confident in the work they do. Confidence over throughput. That's the bet I'm making.